All but a few teams have been the conversation in the NFL this past weekend because they honored Charlie Kirk with the moment of silence. And Charlie Kirk, passed away, was killed after he was given a speech, and he is known to have some strong opinions. Now, I was in therapy and my therapist asked, did this affect me? And I'll be honest, it didn't. I didn't know who he was before this, but I will say this. One, I will never celebrate anybody's death. But what I've learned over the past few days, that there are many people like myself who did not know who Charlie Kirk was. But there are people who are not like me at all, who I believe, while they did not know who he was, they are sad because they share the same views, the same racist views, and that's something that they identify with. So now you can see the excuses to be racist, misogynistic, a bigot. Because of this, they feel they can say this, they can be that way. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Coming up this week's episode of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings with Uncomfortable Conversations, we got to talk Shedeur Sanders. We got to talk Molly Quierm and so much more. Coming up, Breaking Through Glass Ceilings with Uncomfortable Conversations. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this episode of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings with Uncomfortable Conversations. This show right here brought to you by 6 Heart Media Productions. If you've been watching Beyond the Gates like myself, like Queen PR, it's getting real spicy. So I'm going to take this time to do a shameless plug right here on the channel. Let you know you could take a look at some of the deep dives we've done, whether it's Bill, Danny, and Haley, or whether it's Eva, whether or not she's a good person, or even Ashley and Derek's relationship. And of course, we have some weekly recaps, power rankings of the characters, discussions about what's happening. So make sure you check that out on the Beyond the Gates playlist. I'm going to start off today and talk about Shedeur Sanders. So Sunday, I'm on my way to church. And once I got to church, I looked, Ravens game. I know they get ready to play. I'm excited. Yeah, y'all know. I know I said last week I'm not rooting for them. Try not to be emotionally attached to this team. However, I still love them, y'all. Well, I saw a report that Browns quarterback Shedeur Sanders was going to be selected by the Baltimore Ravens in the 5th round. But he said he did not want to play back up to Lamar Jackson. So, and one of the reasons this report came out, the Browns was in town to play the Ravens, in which the Ravens destroyed them on the 30th season anniversary. And, there's a lot of talk about Shedeur. Now, I am a Shedeur Sanders fan. I've been a fan of his because of who his dad is. I will tell you in a minute. My fandom has nepotism. I root for people, players. If I rooted for them in that space, I root for their children. Except the exception of Charlotte Flair. I rooted for Charlotte. I didn't root for Rick. But I root for Shedeur Sanders because I was a huge fan of Dion. But then also I love Shedeur's game. Now we all know Shedeur Sanders should have been drafted in the 1st round. And he proved that he could play ball during the preseason when they gave him a real offensive line. So when I saw this come out, I said, oh boy, here we go. Another reason to jump on Shedeur, right? Drafted in the 5th round, doesn't want to play backup to Lamar. Can you blame him? Lamar Jackson is someone we hope that will play for the Baltimore Ravens for the next 8 years and win 8 Super Bowls. But, with that being said, Shedeur Sanders is probably a fan of Lamar. Maybe, maybe not. He wants to compete against Lamar Jackson on the field. When you have the graphics, Shedeur Sanders, Lamar Jackson, not being his backup. And if you know you want to get to the field, you want to play, why not? I see people talk about Shedeur Sanders. I see they say, oh, well, he wants to be like Tom Brady, right? Well, Tom Brady backed up the first $100 million quarterback in Drew Bledsoe. Drew Bledsoe got hurt. Tom Brady came in. The rest is history. It doesn't always go like that. The other examples, and and I could even come up with some of my own that I didn't hear, but some of the other examples, Kirk Cousins coming in for RG3. Dak Prescott coming in for Tony Romo. Difference is, Tony Romo, we knew, had an injury history and was towards the end of his career. That's the reason why they drafted him in the first place. Tom Brady was a depth pick, a depth chart pick, right? Nobody expected Tom Brady to see the field. Kurt Warner signed from the Arena League. He was for the depth chart. Trent Green gets hurt. Kurt Warner comes in. Y'all know the history. Then you can even make the argument because guess what? When Mark Bolger came in, Kurt Warner was gone. You think about everything, and I look at it and I said, one of the things is, well, you get the opportunity, your number's called, you go. This is a different day and age. Shedeur Sanders, he's already rich. He's already a millionaire. And whether or not the billionaire team governors like it, he can kind of call his shots. Because guess what? He doesn't need their money. If anything, yeah, he needs their product so he can do what he loves. Absolutely. But his brand is already strong enough that in this time frame, he can go do something else. Most of the kids are gamers and streamers anyway. You don't think Shedeur Sanders would rack in 1 million streams? Life after football? So I agree with him. And of course, I don't want Shedeur Sanders on the Ravens because I want to see Shedeur Sanders play, but I don't want to see him overtake Lamar Jackson. Now, if this is 10 years from now, fine. But I think Shedeur Sanders made the right business decision. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to support this podcast by wearing a t-shirt, whether it's the one that says breaking through glass ceilings or the one that says no ceilings above success, simply go to foryourwear.com. Also, you can support some of your other favorite podcast and content creators, including Those Wrestling Girls, Seahawk, and the Wrestling Club. And you can support some of your favorite independent wrestlers, including Jay Bougie, Trisha Dora, Chaz the Dawn. Shoot, all the Pure Ignorance is on there. So go on foryourwear.com, go under personalities, you'll find Brian H. Waters, and buy a t-shirt. And remember, I'll give you a shout out on the show. Ladies and gentlemen, are you in the gym every week? Are you looking to kind of keep yourself cool while you work up a nasty sweat? Well, I got the best thing for you. Cooling bands, bandanas, cooling towels, and so much more. Go to Vertical Athletics, get your favorite team in MLS or MLB, or guess what? Now they have a custom option so you can upload your own logo and you can save 10% at checkout when you enter the code Brian H. Waters. Go to vertical.com, use the code Brian H. Waters to save 10% on some of your best cooling gear. Oh boy, let's talk about Adrien Broner. Adrien the Problem Broner. Now, let me tell y'all, I gotta shout out my boy CJ Butter. He the one, when we was in college, one day I think it was one of our media literacy classes or our media writing classes. He said, bro, check out this dude, Adrien Broner, yo. He liked that. He nice. I was like, word? Yeah. He showed me some highlights. Next thing you know, I'm in Connecticut. And, I covered some of his fights. We had to, make some highlights for. And, I'm seeing him win. I said, okay. And I remember thinking like, okay, CJ was telling me about this dude. He didn't say the next Mayweather, but he said he was the guy that we're going to be watching and, the guy who's going to be box office. And then Broner would go do crazy stuff. He'd get knocked out. He became a meme. And he just kind of went downhill, right? Saw some documentaries on him. He lost the sauce. Somebody who, I heard Ryan Clark say this about Antonio Brown. Money just enhances the person that you are. So I saw out of Adrien Broner. Well, on the It Is What It Is show, Cameron had to check Mr. Broner. Now, they brought him on to talk about the Crawford-Canelo fight this weekend. And that's when, you bring in an expert, right? You bring in a boxer. They brought in Adrien Broner. And he's sitting up there hitting on their co-host, their moderator, Tresure Wilson. And he got checked once. And he kept doing it. And Cam says, you know what? You out of here. I'm going to pay you for your time. You out of here. I respect Cameron in this situation because this is what we should be doing as men. If there's a woman in the room and someone is trying to make her feel uncomfortable, we're supposed to check them. She's there to work. She's not there to be getting hit on. She's not there as eye candy. She's there to work. She does an excellent job, by the way. So I'm glad Cam checked him. Said, stop being disrespectful. Even mentioned like, hey, man, she got a boyfriend in the back. And he kept doing it. And, I also I'm going to shout him out too because, sometimes people are a little hesitant with boxers. It's like, okay, we know this guy's a, legit trained lethal weapon for hands. But no, that didn't matter. So shout out to Cam for that. And, guys, let's continue to do better. If you see a woman getting disrespected in your space, stand up. That's all. I ain't saying you got to cause violence, but just stand up. Speaking of women, Molly Quierm, ESPN moderator for First Take, is no longer with the company. She announced that she would be departing from ESPN by the end of the year after her contract was up. But for some reason, something happened. At the time of this recording, I don't know what that is, but Molly said, you know what? Nope, I'm done. And she is out. Stephen A. Smith talked about it. And he mentioned, he talked about like the big loss that it is. But then he went in to talk about the whole contract situation, how things get uncomfortable in business. People don't want to hear what's said about them. But this ain't about Molly. Well, you're choosing to talk about it in this time frame. And I'm sitting there trying to watch to get some context. And I'm like, it sucks because, Molly was a huge part of that show. Shout out to Carrie Champion, who was an excellent part of that show before Molly was. And I think they are the ladies that made First Take what it was. It takes everybody to be the puzzle. It takes everybody to bring you greatness. From the producers, the executive producers, the coordinator producers, the social media producers, the talent bookers. It takes everybody. So I'm interested to see how the show moves on, who's in that slot next. Then I saw a post by Jason Shitlock. This idiot calls himself inducting Molly into the Gold Bikini Hall of Fame. Now, this is apparently some list to talk about eye candy. And I'm like, I remember when, he mentioned Taylor Rooks. And he said something about somebody and they ate peanut butter. He said, y'all know how I feel about peanut butter. And that was, of course, a shot to what he said about Joy Taylor. And I remember when she brought it up on Cam Newton's podcast, she said, oh, yeah, because he's so desirable. And Jason Whitlock, he just reminds you of somebody who just, never knew how to talk to women, was probably teased by women, teased by girls in school, never been hit in the mouth, never faced, the big adversity. Or maybe he was bullied so bad that he decided to go to the other side. And when I say the other side, the far right side, which he resides, He constantly putting down black people, black women, black men. And then in this case, being so misogynistic, he has these views where he talks about women need to get in line. And I'm just like, dude, go away. But people out there just want to continue to support him. And again, I only see this stuff because it comes up on my feed. Not like I'm a Jason Shitlock supporter. Let's talk about those Kansas City Chiefs, y'all. 0-2 is beautiful. I know that can happen to anybody. I'm well aware. I just watched the Dallas Cowboys documentary. I know 1993, they was the first team to start off 0-2. They went on to win the Super Bowl. Something different about the Chiefs. Something is different about the Chiefs. I think this is where the dynasty starts to crumble. You can only stay on top, but for so long. And I'm excited to see it. It's the Ravens' time. It's just that simple. A perfect year. Now, a perfect year for my personal sports fandom, right, would be the Ravens winning the Super Bowl, the Lakers getting a championship, the Seattle Storm winning and Skylar Diggins finally getting her championship ring, and then cap it off with the Orioles winning the World Series next year. But seeing as that can't happen, let's call for, let's have a more fun, realistically, if I could book it and it would go perfectly, this is how it would go. Well, personally, all right, here's the thing. I'm conflicted, right? I don't think Seattle beat the Aces, but I don't know if they can beat them again. I just don't. It's going to game 3. It's going to be fun. I just think Adrien Wilson is playing out of this world, and I think she's reminding everybody, like, hey, I am the face of the league. I am the best women's basketball player in the universe, and I'm going to snatch the MVP, and if I don't, I'm going to take my team to the finals. Now, with that being said, because if I have to go that route, realistically, I am saying that the Liberty will win another championship. Why? Hey, like I said, I want to see my lady happy. I remember last year. It was a great thing. I want to see it again. I want to see them go back to back. Then in baseball, I want to see the Seattle Mariners. Finally, they got Kyle Raleigh, who is going to break Ken Griffey Jr.'s franchise record of 56 home runs. He just tied it. We know he's going to break it. Still a lot of time left. I would like to see him lead them to the promised land and they win their first World Series in franchise history. And then the Ravens will win the championship. The Ravens will finally win the Super Bowl. And to cap it off, I mean, the Lakers are a playoff team, but I will say this. I'm going to go back to New York City because outside of just along with my lady, I have good friends who have wanted this for so long that I would love to say the New York Knicks would finally get over the hump and do it. Cleveland's going to be a problem. Detroit is coming. I think they're going to be a higher seed. Boston's on pause. Indiana's on pause. Is this not time for the New York Knicks? Come on now. So that's where I'm at with that. Also, I want to give love, shout out to Joe Burrow, who was hurt. He's out for 3 months now. Look, I am a Ravens fan and a proud Bengals hater. I don't like the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't like the Cleveland Browns. I love to hate the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I love the Baltimore Ravens. But you never want to see competition go down like that. A couple games, okay, but 3 months, nah, that ain't even fair. But with those two receivers, I expect Browning, the backup quarterback, to put himself in a position to make a lot of money next year. We talked about backups, right? Remember what Matt Castle did? Now, he went to the Chiefs. He wasn't all that, but hey, he got paid, right? So we'll see. But ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for this week's episode of Breaking Through Glass Ceilings. Make sure you've subscribed. If you didn't, hit the bell notifications. Turn them on. Make sure you check out all the Beyond the Gates content. And also, remember, do not let anyone place a ceiling above your success. So long, everyone.